Hi everyone, it's Ed from Runnable, and this is my race review, my half marathon race review of the Adidas Adizero Prime X Strung 3. So I took this big baby, this Goliath, on a half marathon race in Battersea Park on just a Sunday, that's just been. And in this review, I'm going to tell you everything I experienced in this shoe, the things I liked about it, the things I didn't, whether I feel it's good for half marathon distances, possibly marathon, and whether I think this is a versatile shoe that everybody can race in, or whether it's just for select people, depending on how they run. Hi, it's Ed from Runnable. I'm at my local station, Oakley Park, and I'm getting ready to do the Battersea Half Marathon. Weather-wise, it's a bit rainy. Actually feels reasonably nice for running, so that should be good. And yeah, feeling okay. Feeling a bit, stomach's not great, but sometimes that's the case before races. It's maybe a little bit of nerves or something. Today, as promised, I'm going to be wearing, let me show you. Yep, Prime X Strung 3s. I probably wouldn't have worn these if I'm chasing a PB, just because they're a bit heavier than normal shoes, but I want to test them over a flat, reasonably flat, decent surface. Battersea's pretty good for that, and I wanted to test them over half marathon, more importantly, because I think that's where the sweet spot maybe is with these, in the sense that a bit too heavy to pick up cadence in the shorter distances, but for the longer distances like half marathon, maybe marathon, where you're just cruising and you're cruising at a high pace, a decent pace, I think this is what they might suit. The only issue that I might have is my legs tiring a bit towards the end of the race if they get a bit bottom heavy, these shoes, but I think they should be okay. My legs are just feeling a little bit like, you know, when you've just woken up and they feel a little bit sore. I need them to cooperate, legs. I need them to sort themselves out before the race, because I don't want to really be running like this with this feeling. You know, it feels like the blood circulation's not properly flowing at the moment. Anyway, stop moaning, Ed, and get ready. Train's coming, and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye. Right, so I've arrived with plenty of time at Battersea Park, which is just as well, because I've lost my race number somehow en route, which is bloody annoying. So I've got to go get another one. So I'm going to get that done, and then I'll do some footage of the event, like you see, experience a bit of what I'm experienced today. Yeah, my legs just feel like trash, to be honest, but I can't use that as an excuse. I've just got to get going with it today, see what happens. Sometimes, I remember before the Hackney Half, it felt like my legs felt exactly the same when I ran 1 hour 19, so pretty good. I think it's my third best time ever for half marathon, and that's not an absolutely rapid course either, so it just goes to show you you never know once you get going. Yeah, let's just say I felt better in the past, that's all. But anyway, stop moaning, Ed, get your race number and let's get sorted. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye. I need to find the bad drop.
Looking at the number in between the 50s and avoid through there's a pathway in the corner side and the corner side.
Where's this bad drop?
toilet queue. No way I'm waiting for that. Good luck, Ed.
So all done. I've got to admit that was hard going today. So I did my best. Actually felt like I ran reasonably okay. Legs never really felt great today. My glute was hurting me a bit, and I had some kind of pains in my calves. I can't really blame the shoes. I think I've done about 121 something, which for me is my slowest half marathon for about a year. So I'm obviously not overjoyed, but it could be a lot worse, you know. It just goes to show what high standards I've set myself. I'm disappointed with a 121 half marathon. Shouldn't be. But I am, and it gives me a nice perspective, I think, going into this marathon block that I've still got quite a lot to do. I'll do a few half marathons during this block, and I'll make sure that I get that time back down to sort of 118, try and get 117 at some point. That'll be hard work, but I'll try and do it. And just keep going and get ready for New York, because New York won't be easy. And I have to run a damn sight better than today. And talking of the shoes, they did alright actually. Nice cruising shoes. The Prime X Strung 3s. A bit dirtier now. Yeah, a little bit heavy, and I feel like I need to break them in still. But by no means a bad shoe actually. And if you do 121 in a half marathon with them, it proves you can race in them. Would I have done quicker time with another shoe today? Probably. If I had the Pumas on, Pastar, Nitro 3s on, I'd probably have gone quicker. Probably the Adidas Pro 4s and a few of the others, but they are still pretty effective shoes. I won't rule them out, particularly you heavier runners. If you land forcefully, you're going to engage these plates more than I could today. For me, they're just like a steady cruiser, and I think I'm going to use them more for those kind of long training runs at marathon pace. I think they'd be perfect for me for that. But for racing, I don't think so for me. But that doesn't necessarily mean you guys. If you're heavier build than me, if you land with more force than me, I think you could do have a really nice run in these, race in these shoes. Anyway, see you later. Bye bye. Okay, some key stats around the shoe. So in my UK size 9.5, I went up half a size. I think for most of you, you'll be fine at the true to size, but I went up half a size. I think I probably could have gone true to size, and I could have probably got a 9 in this, but I felt it gave me a little bit of extra room around where the toes are, so I was fine with that. So in terms of weight, this 9.5, UK 9.5, comes in at 305 grams. So that's around about 10 grams less than the previous version of this, the Prime X Strung 2. So it hasn't lost a dramatic amount of weight, but it does feel a bit lighter. We'll go on to talk about the experiences of running in this shoe in a bit. Okay, in terms of drop, you've got your traditional 50 millimeters in the heel. Mine's round about exactly on 50, but obviously if you're a bigger size, you'll have a bigger stack there. And then in the forefoot, you've got around about 43 in the UK size 9.5. So all in all, that's a 7 millimeter drop. It feels about that, maybe slightly less. As I land around here anyway, the drop is never a big thing for me, but for those of you that land here and like to transition quickly through to your forefoot, I think you'll be fine in this shoe. In terms of the upper, you've got a really nice strung upper like you had in the previous 2 iterations of this shoe. I think this is probably the best strung upper yet. It fits my foot the best anyway. And you get nice lockdown in the midfoot area, but it's nice and wide in the forefoot area, so you get the best of both worlds. So if you've got a wide foot like I have, you can splay your toes, which I really like about this shoe, because the other 2 Prime X's, you couldn't do that, or at least I couldn't. And then in the midfoot, like I said, this strung wraps around your foot nice and tight, so it keeps your foot locked in. So there was none of that foot moving as I go downwards. As I descend down a hill, I would often get my foot sliding in the previous version of Prime X, because I couldn't get a good lockdown and it crushed my toes. So I didn't have any of that in this shoe, and I have used it on some descents already. You've got very minimal padding in the collar. You've got a little bit here and a little bit here, and you've got a very flexible heel counter, but all in all it seems to work in terms of lockdown. So I think that the upper is pretty good. I would say that I still prefer the Adidas Pro 4 upper. So if you gave me a choice for the next version of this, I'd rather them get rid of the strung and put the same upper that's on the Pro 4. I don't see the same worry that they have about stability, because I'm sure this is why they use this upper for stability reasons, and also it's quite a nice looking upper. But if you want to make this an actual ratio and geared for performance, I think that would be a step in the right direction. But even so, this is the best strung upper yet, in my opinion, of all the 3, and I would give this a 4.5 out of 5. Outsole, 5 out of 5. We don't really need to talk too much about this. This light traction's amazing, continental rubber's amazing, and it really does cover every part where you land. This is going to last a long time. You can see the rods poking through there. We'll talk about the midsole in a minute. Great grip. It was a little bit wet over the weekend, so I needed it to be good, and it was. So all in all, yeah, like I said, I'd give this a 5 out of 5. You do have a gap here, but there's very little splaying. I wouldn't say this foam is firm by any means. It's not squidgy either. In terms of the midsole and the foam, what have we got going on here? There's a lot going on. So you've got the softer foam here, which I think is the same foam that's in the Adidas Pro 4, which is the TPEE. You've got a firmer foam here, which is unusual, sandwiched between a plate and the rods. Underneath you've got another softer foam, which could well be again the TPEE that's in the Adidas Pro 4. So soft, firmer, soft. I know some people have been saying this is the soft foam. It's not. I've tested it with my little durometer. This is firmer. Unless there's something going on On the outside, it is making it read firmer. I'm not sure, but it definitely feels firmer. And when you land in the forefoot, it definitely feels firmer than when you land here. And you've still got a plate in the back here, you can see sticking out. So you would think if this is the softer foam, you would get more bounce and more softer feeling in the forefoot, but you don't in this shoe. And that's one of the downsides, I think. You expect, just looking at this shoe, you expect it to be really soft, really bouncy, really propulsive. And what you really have is a ride that's a little bit mechanical, a little bit harsh at times, a little bit firm. And I really do think you need to break this foam in to get the full, really nice bouncy feel that I'm sure is in this shoe. But from day one, you may not find it, particularly if you're like me. So I'm 5'9", 63, 64 kg. I'm a bounder. So in theory, I'm right for this shoe in terms of the way I land. I land on the forefoot as well, which I think this shoe is geared towards landing somewhere up here. But I'm not heavy, so I'm not engaging the plate so much. I'm not compressing this foam so much, and I'm not getting that decompression, that nice bounce off that I would hope in this shoe. And that came out in the race actually, where it just, this to me was like a nice cruiser, but I didn't get this huge bounce that I was expecting it. But you can cruise at a very fast rate in this shoe, and I remember at some point during the race thinking, right, I'm going to step it up a little bit, and this reacted really well. So I think you heavier runners, you guys that land around here in the forefoot, that really do compress that plate, really snap it down, you're going to compress this foam, you're going to get a really nice bounce. And I think for heavier runners, this could be an absolute weapon for those longer distances. For me, I think the jury's out. I ran 1 hour 21 in this shoe, which is by no means bad, but it's my slowest run since January. Just to give you a perspective, in February, I ran in the Adidas Pro 4, so the little brother of this shoe, and I did 1 hour 18. And then in March, I ran in the Endorphin Elite 2 Saucony shoe, and I ran even quicker, just 1 hour 18:06 or something. So nearly in the 1 hour 17, so that was my PB. So this was a slower performance. I can't really understand why either. I felt like I was running okay. My legs were a bit jaded to start with, but once I got in the flow, and it felt like I was doing all right, but I just couldn't pick up the pace when I needed to. Whenever I had to stop for water or turn a corner, I slowed down and it was hard to get going again. And I think that is the downside with this shoe. Stability wise, really stable. You've got one of the widest platforms you can ever find in any racing shoe, running shoe here. It's so wide, you get a really nice landing platform. So given it's 50 millimeters, this huge platform is going to mean that it's fairly stable, and the strung upper obviously keeps your foot nice and locked in. There's very little pronation and supination with this shoe because this upper is so firm and non-stretchy that it keeps your foot nice and locked. So all in all, I think it's given the dimensions of the shoe, geometry of the shoe, I think it's a really stable shoe. So durability, yeah, I think it's going to be a very durable shoe. So if stability is 4, maybe 3.5, 4 out of 5. Durability is 5 out of 5. I think this is going to last, you know, your 400, 500 miles, just like the second version, which is still going for me. I think you're going to get a lot of use out of this shoe, and it's why in some ways you might be able to justify the price. So let's talk about the price. £250. But if you're going to use this as your long distance training cruising shoe at marathon pace, for instance, for your training runs, and you're going to race in this shoe, and you're going to get over 500 miles in this shoe, it might actually not be the worst buy in the world. I'd prefer if it was down at sort of 220, but this is like a concept shoe with lots of technology, plates and rods and lots of things, different foams and the strung upper. So it's never going to be a cheap shoe. It's never going to be one of those shoes that just the
you know, I guess unless you're a shoe collector or you're looking for a specific type of shoe you're a heavier runner, this is not going to be the first on your list. But for me, who's fascinated by the technology of shoes, you know, as soon as I knew this was available, I had to have it, and I'm glad I bought it. But the price is a lot, so unless you can see a real use case for it, unless you're a little bit of an addict on shoe technology like me, it's hard to justify that price point, particularly as it's not the fastest shoe on the market. If you want a real fast racer, then I would go with the Adidas Pro 4, which I think is a faster shoe than this, a much lighter shoe than that, a more nimble shoe than this. In terms of speed, it's a cruiser, so once you get going, you can hit some good speeds in this shoe, but you need to get going. It's no good for those courses with tight turns where you slow down. If you're forever getting wart stops, you see the real impact of stopping and starting in this shoe. It's not nimble, you can't really pick up the pace very quickly, but once you do, and once you lock in, there aren't many shoes like this. Maybe the Alpha Fly is the Alpha Fly series are a bit like that, where you just lock in cruise and just get going, right? And that's like this, but they're a lot lighter, and at the end of these long runs, they're going to feel a lot less heavy on your feet. This is a little bit bottom heavy with the plate, with the rods, with this thicker foam. And if you don't like that kind of bottom heavy feel, you're not going to like this shoe. But you can pick up the pace. It's not a slow shoe. You just have to understand that it prefers those long stretches and not stopping and starting like you have to do in some courses. So overall then, what do I think this is good for? I think you can race in this shoe. I've done a 1707, was it? Well, maybe it's a 1713 actually. 5K in this shoe, and there was a lot of stopping and starting. It proves how quick this shoe can be. And like I said, I've just run in Battersea Park a 1 hour 21 half marathon in the shoe, and that's by no means a bad time for me. So it obviously is a decent shoe at that distance. Would I use it for a marathon? Probably not. Unless I really broke this foam in, I'd probably stick to a lighter shoe, the Puma Fastar Nitro Elite 3, for instance, or maybe the new Asics Metaspeeds, Tokyos, even the Adidas Pro 4 before this shoe. That said, it's by no means a bad shoe, and those heavier runners, it's a real option for those longer distances, I think. So overall, I think it's a step in the right direction. What I would say though is you really need to really hit the ground with a lot of force to get the best out of this shoe, to really use the plate and the rods in the most efficient way. And unless you're heavier and you run with huge force, if you're a cadence runner and light, I think this is going to be a terrible buy for you. But I do feel like for those certain use cases, so certain types of runners, this could be a real weapon. So don't rule it out, folks. It's not as bad as some people are saying. It's just maybe not great for certain types of runners. That's kind of all I want to say. In terms of the Battersea Park half marathon, it's 8.7 loops of Battersea Park. So it's a bit one of those mental challenges, lots of overtaking. Obviously, there are runners that you have to navigate. It's one of those that I use more as a marathon training exercise, not for Battersea Park's lovely, by the way, but to do it 8 times, it's kind of a bit samey, as you can imagine. So it's not one of those what I would particularly say is the most interesting of half marathons. But if you want a flat, nice course, well organised by Runthrough, something that you're going to use as a training run to get a kind of baseline of where you are, which is what I'm doing for my New York, then it's a perfect marathon. It's really well organised and like I said, nice and flat and lovely atmosphere. Lots of young people, lots of vibrance about the occasion. You'll see, if you watch my run footage of the events anyway, you'll see what I mean by that. There's a lot going on, and there's over 1,000 runners, so it's a fairly big event, given that it's a run-through event, and also that typically those events aren't that big. So that's all I want to say. I love you all. Hope you get something out of this review. Put in the comments if you're still interested in this shoe. Have I turned you off it completely? I like it, right? I do like it. I just feel like it's maybe not the best shoe for me, but I think it could be an amazing shoe for certain runners, you bounders, you heavier runners, you people who don't need stability because it is a high stack, and those courses where you're just going to go on and on forever without having to stop and start. So I want to say goodbye. Love you all.